Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host tonight, Puck. This is a show where we want to know what you believe and why. So start calling us with your beliefs and opinions right there, 512-991-9242. As with every Friday night, we have a special guest, and this Friday night is no exception. Although it's not really Friday night over there right now, is it, Krafty Keelah?
It is not. It's 1 a.m. on Saturday. Hello, people.
Krafty, it is an honor to have you on here. And now, for those of you who aren't familiar with how I like to have guests, I like to bring on people who either they have something that they want to say, they have something to say that I think people ought to hear, or it's a whole community that I think we need to hear. And I think that we're missing out on a huge, very robust European atheist community. And so representing that community here tonight is Krafty Keelah.
Oh, if I'm representing them, they're screwed. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your work.
Okay, so my channel set up about 1.5 years ago, after having a flat earth person on my farm, because you can see there in the picture, I have a goat in my picture. I used to run a goat farm. So one of the guys that came to volunteer on that farm was a complete flat earther, anti-vaxxer, believed in Bigfoot, believed in incredible theories that I'd never even heard before. So my schooling is in sociology, and a lot of the things that he would come out with just didn't sit right with history and sociological thinking. So when he left the house, he was no longer a flat earther. So I believe I won. But in the process, of course, I tried to look up the hard sciences because I never really did science in school. And so I kind of educate myself that way through some incredible creators, put me onto places that I could actually learn without teachers that aim to bring you down, because we all have those. That's not to excuse all of the fabulous educators that we have in the world, and thank you for what you do, but my time in school wasn't the greatest. So to have those as backup, then what I wanted to do was to bring the sociology side of things. Why is it that people believe what they believe? How is it that societies change? And a big thing for me was explaining that just because you believe in a conspiracy, it doesn't mean that you're just stupid. And that's what I saw coming out of a lot of the debunk community at the time, that if you were a flat earther, if you were a cultist, if you were a conspiracy believer, that you were just stupid. And I didn't like it. So my voice was to explain where those ideas come from and why people choose to believe them. And I think I've done a good job with that. And then also to introduce the sociology side of things that a lot of people that looked at debunking wouldn't have thought of. And it's fun. It's been fun.
No, and that's one thing that got me super interested in having you on as a guest, because you have a really robust body of work. You have everything on there from Britney Spears to Belarus, and a nice video series on conspiracy theories and why people believe them. And it's interesting to see that beliefs like this and the way they spread seems to go across oceans, right? So the same kind of people who believe here and same kind of people who believe over there. So it was really interesting to me to see just how widespread these beliefs can get. So looking back on your work with conspiracy, like what made you want to take all that interest and turn into YouTube?
I'd never thought about having a channel before. And then I was invited onto a live stream by a YouTuber called Mr. Sensible. And he was very supportive. And within that conversation, again, we had a PhD that was on the show at the same time, and there was someone from Australia who was on the show at the same time, and we all actually set up our channels on the same day, which
Oh,
was
wow.
remarkable, which it never happens, but it happened. And so what was coming out of that stream again was the idea of, flat earthers and conspiracy theorists are just stupid. And when I actually went in and discussed how I changed this guy's mind, not with science, but with stories, because we are emotional creatures. And if you don't understand how to talk to an emotionally based creature, you're not going to get anywhere with them. And so it was kind of reminding them to look at people where they're at, not where we want them to be. And that's where challenging conspiracies came out of. Yes, I'm challenging the conspiracy, but I'm also challenging how we react to the conspiracy. Where does the conspiracy come from? Why do we choose to believe it? Why do some choose it and not others? And that's what kind of, and it's just, at the moment, it's a brief look at the sociology of the issue, whatever issue that I choose.
It's not a brief look. And this is one thing that really got me interested in your material. You have very long form videos, very well researched on specific individual topics. You bring people on who are very capable of speaking about it. It's such a well put together channel and well put together material. And so for those of you who have always been wondering about this is how you get on an ACA show. Okay, you find one of the hosts, you get them to be completely enamored by your content, and then you pester them into saying, "Hey, if you have a spot open on one of your shows, I dearly love to be on." Now, of course, in Krafty's case, I had to drag her in here kicking and screaming.
Not at all.
No, but this is how you do it. Get your body of work out there, and it gets noticed. And the reason why I feel like we're missing out, because it's not just you, but there's a lot of other content creators over there, and we can throw out some names if we want to, of some people that this community might not have heard of. When I told people who my guest this week was going to be, the most popular answer was, "Who's Krafty Keelah?"
Yep.
And so I feel like we're missing out. And so here you are, and talking about some of your great work. If you have an opportunity to, and we'll give you a chance to later on today, but not just Krafty, but check out this whole community of wonderful people who are going through a lot of the same things that we are. And one of the things that gets to me is and we talked about this a lot in the past couple of weeks, is how as Americans there are a subset of us, and I'm included in this, who have this bias about things in America are the most important things going on, when really, being such a global community, there's stuff going on in Europe, in England, that's super important and will affect us, even if it doesn't now. I mean, there was recent court decision over in the UK regarding trans legislation, and stuff like that happens, and we should be more aware of it. So where are you on the perception of American egocentrism?
Well, here's the thing. This is the benefit of having a global community, or communities. I use the term community quite loosely because it transcends just one group of people. We can learn the lessons from other countries. We can learn the lessons from other struggles. And for myself, one of the first things that I was ever involved in general, in society, was abortion rights. And so a lot of my work at the moment is, I was one of the central people in the abortion rights campaign who campaigned to get a repeal of the Eighth Amendment, which then led to the abortion ban being lifted on Ireland. And so part of what I do at the moment is not only do I do work here in Ireland on that, but also what's happening in Texas at the moment and other states around the US. So we've been through that, very, very recently. For a very long time, we've been through that. So we're able to give our experiences and what worked for us and what didn't work for us over to people in America who are dealing with the same thing that we've had to deal with. So I think one of the best things about having that global community is just learning from each other. The reason why the American centrism is happening is because for the longest time, America was the big powerhouse. They're no longer the only big powerhouse in the world. So a lot of people are now looking elsewhere as to what's happening in the world. So I'm hoping that leaves a little bit of wriggle room for creators like myself to take part in shows like this, because as I said, like this is going on at like 1 o'clock for me. But I love being part of these discussions.
No, and we definitely appreciate it. It's one of the difficulties about getting European guests is because of the time difference and how we're basically asking you to stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning just to do a show with little old us. And I appreciate that you're doing it. So how do you decide what you're gonna run a topic on or run a show on from show to show?
So yeah, I have 3 different shows or 4 different shows. I have Life on the Flip Side, where I have a co-host, Steaming Cup of Reason, and that's just what we do. Is the goat that you see in the picture here is hidden in the background of that show. Then they have to find it, and if they find it, they're the guest for the next week. So that's just a way of us getting to know our subscribers and our supporters, and just having a chat and breaking down the barriers between creator and supporter, because I don't think there's much of a barrier, because we are supporters as much as we are creators. The second one then is Keelah Talks. So it's basically something that's been in the news recently that I feel very strongly about, and then I'll talk for about 2 hours on that. And the third one is Ion Society, and I think this is the one that you were referencing. Ion Society is a deep dive into the history of an issue. Why do we have this issue in our society? Whether it be the Free Britney movement, which a lot of people didn't understand what conservatorship is, and I see your t-shirt there, and that was my first Keelah Talks actually. But with the deep dives, it's more like Belarus. It's the big things, the global things in our society that's happening, and how they got to where they are. And the issue with that show, yes, I bring people on, but the point of it is that we have a proper discussion. It's not a dumpster fire. It's not a way of screaming at each other. It's, let's see how we got this to be as big as it is. How did we get there? So the way I choose them is what has been happening. Like, I think my first Iron Society was Myanmar, and what was happening as the dispute was happening in Myanmar. Then, of course, Belarus was a huge topic, and a friend of mine is actually in Belarus, and we had him on the stream to actually give a first-hand account of what it's like living there, and his history. Instead of me dictating what the history was, let's have him tell the history, and discuss what's happening. And from there, it's just things that go under the radar. You know, these big, huge issues that not even in Ireland or the UK or America they're talking about. But they're huge, huge issues that are happening on a global scale. And why are they happening? That, for me as a sociologist, the big question is why? Why is this happening? So it's fun. It's weird to say big cataclysmic events is fun, but it is fun to do that research and to be able to present such an important thing. I have coming up after Christmas, I have a guy from Iran who is in Iran at the moment going to come on a stream to deal with the history of Iran and how that developed and how it became the hot topic that it is. And part of it is because I have worked in the Middle East for 18 months. I worked with the UN and the Red Cross for 18 months, working in different fields. So I got to know a lot of different people. I got a lot of different inputs. So having those contacts there to say, okay, can you inform me on how to explain this to people? And then I just put it into my own words. And you guys have to put up with it.
I think it's beautiful. I think like that last monologue you did is exactly what's going to sell you on getting out to nonprofits. So I was going to do that, try to plug it for you, but you that said it better than I could. No, you know what? About 5 years ago, I wish I had known you back then, because there was a populist president in another country that maybe we don't think about as often as we should, named Duterte. And I wish that I had someone who would look into that and be just as interested in that as I am. Because again, just because it doesn't happen right next door to us or within our own fences doesn't mean it's not something that is going to affect us.
Yeah.
And and I love that you're willing to be such an educator because how do we say this? I've known that you're going to be on the show for quite some time, and we've been talking quite a bit off and on for the past couple of months.
We
And
have.
boy, if this past couple of months has not just been a very eye-opening session on just like, I guess I'm not supposed to say UK when talking about all those countries in that chunk of the world over there. Apparently, there's some tensions or something
Just
that
a
I
bit.
was unaware of. I'm putting this mildly, but yeah, the education is starting to come in. That no, there's a lot of tension between Ireland and wow, touch on that.
Well, there's not as much tension anymore, but well, it depends on where you are in the country. So Ireland is a very unique country where when you say Republican, a lot of people think right wing. Republicanism in Ireland, because of imperialism, developed with left wing rhetoric. It's still the same toxic bull, but it's I caught myself. But it's yeah.
It's been 2 minutes.
So
It's been 2 minutes. You have the thumbs
yes.
up now.
So what's happened is we had our revolution in in 1916, but it went on till 1925, and then what's happened was the north of Ireland, the 6 counties in the north, were segued into the UK, so they were retained by the UK. It was a way of basically saying Britain has lost, but they're not giving up everything. And so ever since then, there has been tensions between the Catholic Ulsters and the Protestant Ulsters. And I know a friend of mine, Mathpig, is in the chat. He will tell you he's often, as an atheist, been asked, "But are you a Catholic atheist or a Protestant atheist?" This is a real issue. And now, because of Brexit, of course, tensions are heightened again, because what looks likely, if the UK government don't get their butts in gear and talk to the EU, what's likely is a hard border back in the north of Ireland, which is going to cause even more tensions and probably more violence. Hopefully not. Hopefully we can avoid it. But
And of course, this is just the tip of the iceberg, especially if it comes down to history. There's so much more that we could look into. Like, I gotta admit, the most that I've ever looked into Irish current events is by watching the movie Patriot Games about 30 years ago. So I know I'm severely lacking. But since I know I'm severely lacking, I have been trying to learn a little bit more with Krafty as a wonderful guide, who has introduced me to like Irish music and Irish culture and just giving me a better understanding of what's going on. But I want to put my money where my puck is, because I can't suggest that other people immerse in a culture and then not also do it myself, right? So we have a fun little experiment that we're going to have here,
this is going to
because
be
it turns
fun.
out that I am not very good at Irish names.
No, no, you're really not.
I'm not.
And it's hilarious.
And when we were talking about this, we came up with the idea, you know what? Let's see if I have gotten any better at Irish names. And I like most Americans, I know like a couple of the basics. I know Siobhan, and because there was a popular actress a while ago, I know Saoirse. But even then, I'm sure I say that wrong.
What's funny is
Saoirse rhymes with inertia, right?
you had a stream there a while ago where you asked me to name 2 characters in your game, and then the very next week you forgot how to pronounce the names.
I did. I didn't know how to, and it's because, okay, frankly, the spelling confuses me. Okay, and then like I've learned this: if there's a consonant followed by an H, you're doing something weird to that vowel, to that consonant sound. So we decided, you know what? Let's see if I've learned anything, and we've actually come up with a list of traditional Irish names. We're going to
Yes.
put them up on screen for those of you who are listening and not watching. I will actually spell it out for you as best I can. If I mess up on the spelling because I don't know how to say I with the little line over it, please correct me. So we're going to do it. We're going to go guess an Irish name. Let's see what the panel has brought for me.
Here we go.
Okay, I can make out letters. It is Laoighseach. I think I got that right.
Yes.
I'm going to say, okay, because it's the first thing that comes to mind, because it's an eye surgery here, is LASIK.
Very
LASIK.
close.
Ooh,
Very
okay.
close.
Okay, what is it, and how can I use the knowledge here to do better on the next name?
It's Leishik.
Leishik.
Yeah.
How do you get E out of A-O. Leashik. Anyway, okay. 0 for 1. Let's try. Let's see what else we have.
Very good though.
Leashik. Drum roll. Oh my. Ruaidhraig. Is it just, are you trying to get as many H's in there as possible?
No, this is actually how my friend spells his name.
Okay, it looks like Rudrig. Or Riedrig.
No.
Not even close. Okay,
Well,
okay, what is it?
It's Rory.
How do you get Rory from? No, there's far too many consonants for that to be Rory.
That's Rory. Rory.
So the H is like canceling out the D and the G, and that's just Rory.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I'm warming up. One more. Let's go. Okay. If the H cancels out the consonant before, then we have...
That's a very simple one.
Oh, this is simple. You call this simple. It is O with an accent. RFHLAITH. And based on what we know about H's, I'm going to guess Orly?
Very close.
Oh, good. I'm getting better.
That's Orla.
Yeah. Orla. Okay. And let's do one more. Let's do one more. Let's see if I can get this one. Please, I just want one. I
gave them a 10, so it's up to them which ones they choose.
Oh no. Let's see. It's
That's very straightforward. Come on now, Puck.
AIBHILI, and again, this is I with an accent on it.
This is so easy.
Oh, it's so easy. Sure, you see this name every day. I'm seeing this for the very first time. Okay, the H cancels out the island.
The H doesn't count it out when it's a B.
When it's a
or
B.
an M.
A B or an M.
Yeah.
Okay. Whenever I've seen a BH before, it made a V sound. So can we try Evelyn?
Evelyn, well done.
I got one! Oh, I have a lot to learn. And if anybody on the audience looked at that and realized they have a lot to learn too, looks like we have a fantastic teacher here who's willing to help us all with our Irish culture. Anyway, this is a call-in show, and we would love to get your calls about what you believe and why. And we have a fantastic person for you guys to match wits with. The number is 512-991-9242. We're going to get to calls in a minute, but let's see. Do we have a patron of the week this week that we're going to shout out? There it is. Our patron of the week this week is... Drum roll, please. For just a moment, I thought it was going to be another one of those Irish names that's impossible to pronounce. But no, instead we have Katie Indeed Stewart. Thank you very much. If you would like to support the show, we'll talk about ways to do that. But Patreon is a fantastic one. Every week we're going to shout out a very special patron of the week, just like this. So Keelah, this is the fun part of the show. Are you ready to take some calls?
Do you know what? I've been... not worried, but like terrified to death about this part because we never know what's going to come up. But yes, I'm definitely ready. I'm excited.
No, we don't, and I think we'll just get started here. The first call is Walt, him from Georgia. How are you doing, Walt?
Oh, very good. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Hello.
I have here that you have an ultimate theory of infinity.
Well, yes, I'm actually. Well, anyway, I'm in the science community. My main topic, or what I've been doing for all my life, is involving climate and climate change. But this is something totally different to be discussed in the realm of science, or maybe pseudoscience. But I think it's science. And it involves cosmology and the Big Bang. And, of course, the Big Bang has been associated with a lot of theist or atheist arguments over the last, ever since the theory has been discussed. But well, This expounds on it, if you will.
Okay. Well, I got to admit right off the bat that I don't have a lot of deep knowledge into cosmology, especially early cosmology. But I'd be interested to hear what you've got.
Okay, let's try this. All right, try this as an argument for size or cosmological argument. And first of all, let's go with a couple of definitions for what I have here. The universe is everything that came before and after the Big Bang in a closed finite system, we're going to call it like a soap bubble, like a soap bubble theory. And the cosmos is everything that ever was, exists now, and ever will be. Okay. So, all right, our universe is, let's say this. Our universe is an hourglass, conceptualize an hourglass, like a very old, hourglass with the sand going through it and that sort of thing, with the Big Bang appearing to occur out of nowhere, like sand falling from the top of part of the glass, from the perspective of us being located somewhere in the bottom part of the apparatus. And all that came after the Big Bang is contained within the bottom of a proto-matter funnel, where all we know appears and expands in this realm and spreads apart due to what I would call, have you heard of dark energy?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is a little different. Appears and expands in this realm, and it spreads apart due to I would call the positive phase of dark energy. Of course, current science can't detect anything at the top of the glass where matter came from or before the Big Bang. And also, of course, from our current perspective, no more sand, quote unquote, is coming from behind the aperture where the Big Bang took place. Okay. Also, for the sake of argument, let's say that most matter on the edge of the universe breaks down to its smallest components after 100 trillion years from the point of the Big Bang, in which what I call the negative phase of dark energy takes over or flips. And of course, as far as the dark energy goes, that's for anybody listening, that's the force that is spreading all the galaxies and everything apart faster and faster.
Okay. Well, really, really quick here, because this is starting to go way over my head. Help the pragmatist here, because this sounds fascinating as far as a different way and a perspective of looking at things. But where does this actually get us? What does this change if this is an actual model? How do I live how is it going to affect my daily life and my understanding? And where are we going with this? Why is it important to know this?
We're going to where we can tell that we can't really tell, but we're going to say that something did not really come out of nothing as far as the Big Bang goes. There was something behind it, and I would say that as far as the whole cycle of this goes, it was this is just a theory, of course. It was a black hole that's light years across. That's everything that had just been compounded down to be a black hole, and then all of a sudden that becomes a singularity because everything's crushing into one point, and then it just burst into our realm as the universe. That's where it's going.
Once again, though, well, bring this back and make it important to me. Like, how does this really change me and my understanding of the science and the world as it applies to what's going on in life right now? Right. I mean, it sounds like it's fascinating to think about, but where's this actually getting?
Okay, you're an atheist, correct?
I am.
Okay, and you've had arguments with theists saying, well, here we can tell that everything was created because we have the Big Bang, and the Big Bang. Science looks back in time towards the point of creation, and that was the point of creation. So I'm suggesting that there would be an alternative to that, in which it's not really the point of creation because there was a point before that, and here's maybe a plausible explanation of why there is no beginning. There's no beginning to time. It just goes back and farther, and it's circular.
Sure, but without a way of really investigating this, I mean, this is just as speculative as anything else, right?
Yes, that is correct. There's no way of the only thing that I would point to is that scientists are just now beginning to understand or try to understand what dark energy is, and because in nature there seems to be two of everything, like in magnetism, the pole switch. We have matter and antimatter. So why couldn't there be another phase of dark energy in which everything, it's a force in which everything is drawn together, just like gravity, except stronger?
And I mean, there
I-
could, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, is this mostly speculative at this point? Like, have you really dug deep into? Have you brought this up with people who are actually in the know and said, you know, let's talk about this. Tell me a little bit more about your understanding, and then I'll share mine. Like, what have you done as far as like bringing this up?
This is sort of my first foray into this. I was kind of drawn while I was pointing to your show. So yes, it is definitely. It's just all speculative at this point. Yes.
Can I make the point? Can I make the point very, very quickly that I get what you're doing, and sometimes it is attractive to go down that that route of trying to answer someone's question of why is there nothing instead of why is there something instead of nothing. Can I just make the argument to you that sometimes, but can I just finish there? Can I just make the argument that sometimes it's okay to say we don't know? That is a very powerful statement to admit that you don't know. It's fun to make these assertions of this is what could have happened. And I will put it to you that the hourglass analogy that you're using is very, very confusing, and it's probably not. I would like for you to go away and kind of simplify that down a little bit, because when you're talking to people like ourselves, or when you're talking to people out in the streets and you're trying to get your ideas across, you want to be able to strip it back to the most basic thing that you're trying to say. Otherwise, a lot of people are just going to switch off. A lot of what you said, I did follow the majority of it. I'm not a cosmologist. But what I would say is just go away and think of how to simplify what you're trying to say, because it'll benefit you to have these conversations when people understand what you're talking about. But sometimes it is okay to say that you don't know.
Yeah, that's what I found useful, rather than come up with other
discussion.
Yeah. No, rather than come up with additional alternatives, like, you know, that is probably the best answer is, you know, we just plain don't know. And even you said about your own theory, this is speculative. There, you know, you don't have too much backing this up. But I do recommend, if you are interested in this stuff, go find out more information from the people who are in the know and who, you know, who are science educators and who talk about this kind of stuff. It's interesting to talk about, but, you know, like we want to know what's actually there instead of just guessing as to what might be. Krafty, what else?
It is the truth that we're after here. And so the best way for me is, or in my view, is to say, yes, we don't know until we are certain that we do know. And the best way of doing that is to explore the universe, is to get the idea. But to my mind, something instead of nothing is the wrong question. That's the wrong question. And if you allow yourself to go down that hole of what started the universe, again, it takes you in the wrong direction of what humanity is about. It's not about how did we get here. It's the fact that we are here. How do we make it the best life and the best world and the best universe we possibly can make it? And I think that's a route that a lot of people fall down on. They get bogged down with these questions and trying to justify the fact that we are here to people who need a reason for us to be here.
Oh, sure, definitely. I've seen all the, or a lot of the Richard Dawkins videos, if you've seen those.
Yes,
on YouTube. Yeah. So this is just what I was doing was just was trying to be like a fun exercise and discussing the plausibility of why did something come out of nothing.
I mean,
it's a fascinating thing to think about. It really is.
The biggest problem with that analogy, the idea of the only way or the way new universes are created is by the hourglass flipping back over through dark matter. The only problem with that is the theist will always come back with the idea that someone needs to flip the thing over. When time runs out, somebody or something needs to be there. So you're actually falling into your own trap. So I would just think about it a little bit clearer and try to communicate it a little bit better. This is great though.
Yeah, and keep engaging with us.
Oh,
like
sure,
we'll give you some ways to keep talking to the community.
Actually, to be honest, this was my first attempt at explaining this to anyone.
No, we super appreciate it. I am honored that you've chosen to bring this up with me. We got a bunch of callers on the docket though, Walt, so we're gonna let you go and move on to some other ones. But thank you very much for calling.
Well, thank you, Walt.
Thank you for so much. Thank you for so much for having me. Okay.
Of course.
You're
have
awesome.
a good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, see, and you were worried that you weren't going to have anything to talk to. No, this is fun. Let's do one more.
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk to Jason, him from Indiana. How are you doing, Jason?
Hi, Jason.
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Keelah?
We're doing well.
Taking my call.
So I have here, you're a former Christian and now a counseling student, and you're disappointed about some non-evidence-based treatments.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I grew up evangelical, started to dismantle those beliefs in my 30s, and the theme that kept coming up for me was that I just felt like faith wasn't good enough, and I needed more evidence. And I was getting really tired of pastors and youth pastors telling me that I just needed to have faith that it was true. Did a whole self-discovery journey, and that included a career change. So now I'm pursuing a master's in mental health counseling. And school has been awesome. Thank you. Thanks. School's been great. We're learning evidence-based modalities and, everything. I love psychology. Everything is science-based. But now I'm in my internship, and I've just been pretty blown away by how many non-evidence-based practices make it into therapy, kind of smuggled underneath some of the evidence-based.
Krafty, this sounds like this is more in your wheelhouse. I get
it.
Yeah,
give us a quick example there of what you mean.
Please.
Okay. So the most extreme one was a client I had who has begun hearing voices in the past couple of years. And they had a distant family history of schizophrenia, and that's definitely where my diagnosis was leading me. And I spoke with my supervisor about it, and she said, well, how can you discount that these voices aren't real? And I was taken back, and I said, well, family history of schizophrenia, I'm looking for the most probable explanation for this. And she said, well, as counselors, we need to be very open-minded. And I got about a 10-minute lecture about how people can talk to spirits, and that I should encourage this client to volunteer at a funeral home to help spirits cross over.
Wow.
Yeah, that was rough. That was, I made the decision to kind of discreetly suggest to their parents to take them elsewhere, which they did, and also mention the schizophrenia. And then a more common example is essential oils. It seems like with every client, someone's breaking out a briefcase and saying, if you put this scent on the back of your spine, it will enter your spinal cord and reduce cortisol. And,
I'm well aware of those.
It's alongside, okay, yeah. It's alongside cognitive behavioral therapy and EMDR and things that actually work. But it's just been a trip. I feel like, I escaped the world of being proselytized to regarding Christianity, and I'm being proselytized to about alternative therapies and ancient Chinese medicine. But I am in the Midwest, so disclaimer there.
Yeah. I mean, can I just say thank you for doing the best you could for that individual, and suggesting that they go elsewhere. If you were not comfortable with what was being suggested, doing your best for that patient is your primary goal. And so thank you for having the courage to actually go against what you were being told. That's huge.
Thanks. Yeah, I know a lot.
And then the next thing that stands out about what I see is, you say non-evidence based, and it seems to me that there is a decent subset of the population who believes in this kind of stuff, that evidence isn't really why they believe it. So it seems to be very difficult to evidence them out of it. Does that make sense?
It's also kind of backlash because especially in the States at the moment, what you're seeing is a backlash against the last 20, 30 years of hard drugs being pushed by what would be considered large pharma. Now, the reason why those drugs were pushed was because they were seen as the easiest and quickest relief for whatever was ailing the person. But when it comes to mental health, we're only scratching the surface. So only now are we seeing that drugging someone on Ritalin is not the greatest way of helping someone through a struggle with their mental health. I have bipolar, and when I was diagnosed with bipolar, the first thing that they tried to do was put me on to drugs. And thankfully, my mum was strong enough to say, actually, no, I want her to be able to handle her and manage her emotions in a better way than just popping pills. And so it took 7 years to find the right person that was willing to help me do that. So, and I'm willing to bet it was someone like you who refused to just accept that it's A or B, and that there is actually different ways of dealing with someone's mental health. What's happening now is the backlash. You know, you're seeing a rise in anti-professionalism, and so if you're seen to be big pharma, or if you're seen to be organized medicine, then you're bad. And so to be cool, you have to try all of these new different techniques and use the excuse that they've been tried and tested before. Well, they were tried and tested before we had penicillin. They were tried and tested before we had actual medicines that can assist with whether it's mood stabilizers, whether it's antipsychotics. It was done before that time. And there is this move to be quote unquote simpler, but again, as you said, it's not scientific, and the proof is in the pudding. A lot of what's happening now is placebo effect, and it's not working. Sadly, it's not working. So I would ask you to keep looking, because there will be someone in your area that you will connect with that will actually teach you what you need to know and how to be strong in that. Do not allow these people, these con artists, and I say con artists, they actually do believe what they're saying. Some of them do believe what they're saying, but at the same time, don't lose faith in you. That's the main thing. If you believe that you can make a difference to someone's life, do not allow the con artists to push you out of that. You know, break through it, transcend it the way you did religion. And you can. There's plenty of people that have done it. You can do that.
I don't think I have anything I can add to that. That was awesome.
So, yeah, thank you. That was great.
And I get that in Indiana, this is probably easier said than done.
Very.
But yeah, you know what? We appreciate you fighting the good fight and, you know, keeping an eye out and for these things and calling attention to it. So
you're amazing.
Yeah, I couldn't give anything better than what Keelah did. So did you have any last minute things to add?
Myself? No.
No, Jason, did you have anything else to add to that?
Oh, just, you know, I guess just encourage people to really do the same when they're seeing a therapist and really kind of press them for what sort of modalities they're using. And, you know, and if they break out the Young Living case, run.
Yes. And also for yourself, Jason, it might be an idea. And again, this is part of the benefit of having a global community, is get in contact with people from outside your area and ask them for advice, ask them how to handle this situation and what's the best route forward in dealing with these situations.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for giving us a call, Jason. It's
frustrating that they're all licensed.
No. Well, keep us informed though. Keep engaging with us and let us know how things are going for you. We got to move on to other things. We have a long docket of calls today. I want to see if I can try to get to all of them. But first, Truth Wanted is but one show on the ACA docket, and if you haven't been watching all the other shows, here's what you've missed.
Oh, every time I see myself in one of those recaps, I just imagine just how proud my mother must be of me and all of the things that I've accomplished in my storied career.
It's funny because the religion spiritual thing butts heads, but they're the ones telling each other that your position makes no sense and is unfounded, and I'm just sitting there just like eating popcorn.
I have to say this because it's in my Chicago contract. Green Bay, Green Bay, Green Bay.
Let's move on. We've got, we're gonna do a quickie with Lloyd and Kenneth and Rick. Um,
I'm not sure I signed up for that either. But
Like if I were to say that the Catholic Church is like an international criminal cartel that protects pedophiles, would that be an example of like a thing that would be like offensive to the Catholic Church?
I love this one.
Green Bay.
If you are listening to the show instead of watching it, you really do yourself a favor and please at least just watch the promo. The funniest thing for me is watching Kenneth going crazy and dancing up a storm, and Lloyd is just like, okay, that's cool.
You gotta love the dancers.
We do. That's we have a lot of fun making these productions, and now that we know that there is some recording going on before the show starts, start looking out for those behind the scenes clips. We got a number of calls here, and I want to see if I can run the table. We're having a lot of fun here, so let's keep going. Let's talk to John him from Canada. You want to make an argument for why vaccines should not be mandated?
It should not be mandated because if they can mandate vaccines, they can mandate anything. So in other words, by doing a mandate, they're telling you to put something inside your body. If you have no control over your own body, you have no control over anything. It takes away your autonomy, and that means we lose our freedom.
I smell a slippery slope here, but Krafty, where do you want to start off with this?
Wow. Well, there's a lot in there. I'm not particularly for mandatory vaccines, but I can understand why. The simple fact of the matter is where we are is the longer people remain unvaccinated, the more variants come from this virus. And this is the problem. The more variants, the more drawn out the solution is going to be. So the issue with the vaccine, and I hate to say it, John, you're in Canada, I'm in Ireland, Puck, you're in the US. I hate to say it, but we don't know what it's like for our freedoms to be taken away. You look at other countries and you can see what freedoms being taken away are. And I think a lot of people in relation to this vaccine have been very first world problemish. They don't actually see the larger picture. You don't actually see that you could be destroying your entire family, your entire community. And part of that reasoning is because we've lived in a world where, the individual has been the only thing that mattered. Well, the individual isn't going to protect your family. Herd immunity is, especially if you're not able to get the vaccine. And I can understand why people are upset about the idea of losing their rights, but you having the right to murder someone else by walking in to a crowded library or a crowded place because you just don't feel like it is not a good enough reason. For me, it's manslaughter. Because it's not really premeditated, but if you actually spread the virus because you refuse to get a simple dose, then what you're actually doing is you're putting the entire community at risk. Now, in terms of if they mandate this, then therefore they're going to mandate other things. Things get mandated all the time, and you don't say anything about it. The only reason why you're against it at the moment is because someone told you it was bad. I hate to say it, but it's global, right. And someone told you it was bad.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I'm assuming that you're pro-choice?
I am.
Okay, so your argument is that the government can't tell you what to do with your own body when it comes to a pregnancy, but you are okay with the government telling you what to do about what you can put into your own body.
Yes, hang on. There's a distinction here. There is a distinction here, okay? When a woman gets pregnant, that's not going to affect anyone besides her. When you get a deadly virus that spreads... Hang on,
John, we're going to let Krafty finish this.
Hold on. Let me finish, and then you can come back in on it. A pregnancy affects the woman's body and anything contained within the woman's body. It does not affect the broader society. Whereas this is a deadly virus that is mutating by the hour. And it is killing people on a scale that we have not seen in nearly 100 years. So that's the difference. There has to be a moment where we say the greater good, and I hate to use that phrase because it's so corny, but the greater good and what is in the interest for the species to survive is mandatory vaccines. And if the governments decide that's the way to go to protect their populace, then that's the way to go. And hopefully, the way in which you do make sure that it's just for this one vaccine is by monitoring your councils, by monitoring your politicians. That should definitely not just be given a free pass on every single thing. You fight back where it's needed to fight back. But where it's necessary for the survival of the species, your individual rights, and we do this all the time, seatbelts, yelling fire in a crowded room or a crowded theater. We have these ideas for a reason. We have these mandatories for a reason, and it's to safeguard human life. If you're not for safeguarding human life, then you really need to look at yourself and say, why am I not for safeguarding human life?
All right, John, what do you got to say about that?
Okay. First of all, suspending human freedoms should never happen. Each time the government suspends human freedoms, it always ends up in disaster. And you're basically saying that you're okay with the government telling you what to do with your own life. That is called communism. And
no, it's not.
Whoa,
no, it's not. That's called laws. That's called laws, mate.
Yeah, you have no idea. Like, there are laws that are telling us what frequencies our Wi-Fi can be on. There's laws regarding what kind of material my cup can be made out of. And these laws, for a large part of it, is designed for our protection. Right? I mean, I'm glad that there's a Food and Drug Administration that's looking out to make sure that there are regulations for safe handling of food. These are good things to have.
Look, I understand the mistrust of governments. I do. I really do. However, it's misplaced anger. It is misplaced anger.
I am not angry. I'm surprised at you, Miss Krafty, because you come from Ireland. I know your history, that how Britain suspended the rights of your country and how you fought for your independence. And now here you are arguing for the government to be control. You do realize the governments are controlled by people who have their own agenda, and their own their agenda are not in line with yours or with the people. Who can ensure your safety better than you?
There's when it comes to safety, there's a lot of things that I don't do right to ensure my safety. I'm a year and a half off the smokes, but for a long time I smoked. I still drink. There's a lot of things that I do that's not really in the best interest of my safety. But can I just explain to you how society works? Okay, how democracy works? Because you just said there, and this is correct. The politicians are elected by the people. In most countries, there are other countries still that do not have fair and equal elections. But in the Western world, we have elections. We have elections to councils. We have elections to parliament. And the councils is where you really want to look. But when it comes to people coming out and voting, that's called democracy. And if you don't like what's happening in democracy, either run yourself, which I absolutely think you should do, or you have to trust the majority. If you're not going to be involved in the politics in general, then you have to trust the democracy. That's how we as a society have evolved. We trust in the democracy. And if we don't like it, we try to change it by running in fair and democratic elections. Whether that be at a national level or a local level, if you don't like it, which you're absolutely, you're entitled not to like it. But if you don't like it, do something about it instead. And I don't mean just scabbing about it. You know, I encourage you to get involved in a local level and discuss it with people who have actually spent 10, 20, 30 years in the industry of making vaccines. Talk to these people. I've done it. You can do it. Talk to these people and understand the process that they've gone through to safeguard human life.
All right. Well, John, we're going to have to move on. We got a lot of callers, but thank you very much for your insight on that one. Wow, we got so many calls, and I think this person wants to address something that we were talking about earlier. So let's go ahead and get, is this Spicoli, him from Florida? Spicoli?
Hey, how's it going?
Did I say that right?
Yeah, you said it right.
Oh, good, because apparently I'm on a trend of not saying names right today, so I just want to make sure I got it.
No, well, you got it right. I talked to you and Martin, I think, a bit back when he was filling in.
Very nice. Well,
and it's funny because the topic then was vaccine hesitancy.
It's going to be a hot button for a long time, but today you wanted to talk about something a little different.
Totally. And it's funny because we've gone on a couple tangents there. It was I want to say it was about American egocentrism is what you had, was the phrase you used, and tied into something that Keelah was saying there about how people are so apt to believe conspiracies and things of that nature.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of what. I think that's the tangent that it was, or that they're kind of what it was about. Sure.
What did you have to say about it?
I mean, they teach that stuff in schools. Like mine was my phrase for it is American exceptionalism, and it's like it kind of it's that hero worship of the home country. It's basically nationalism, disguised that with a nicer phrase, a nicer term to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like part of that has to be owning up to your mistakes. I mean, you can love a country very much and you can love a partner very much and still realize their shortcomings and realize, where things went wrong in the past and know that you're on a trajectory to hopefully try to find ways to correct it. Hopefully. I don't know. You're right. Yeah, please.
Can I just ask, are you against? I don't like egocentrism, US egocentrism, but it's an interesting term. Are you against Americans being kind of centric about their own country and not understanding what's going on in the rest of the world, or what's your thoughts?
I see I think that's a slippery slope. It's like
it is.
Of course, I have zero issue with people loving where they were born, and it's like I root for Team USA to kick Ireland's butt every time the U.S.
and you don't
plays,
and you don't,
and the women's national team. I love,
and you don't.
Come on, So
tribalism is alive and well.
But when it becomes like a issue or a toxic thing is when people use it to justify or just use it as a means to an end, if you will, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for my country at the moment, we are going through this transitionary period in the last 10, 20 years where we've had to face up to the reality that we were for a long time, for the majority of our history, in the last 100 years, we were a very bad country. We treated people very, very badly. And only now are we starting to see regressions for that and reparations for that. We're only starting to open up to the fact that we allowed things to happen that should never have happened. And I mean, the problem with it is nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. They know they're wrong, but nobody wants to dwell on it. And nobody knows how to actually process it because we've never been taught how to process these things, especially great works of evil that we ourselves were never involved in. It was our ancestors or whatever. And so the conversation then becomes is how do we have these conversations? How do we process this information? Because a lot of what I'm seeing coming out of the US is either super I love my country or they're trying to make me hate my country because of what happened 100, 200, 300 years ago, or we should absolutely be ashamed. And that's not what anyone is looking for. It's just trying to work together and to admit some of the faults and then to move on together. And how do we do that? That's a very complex question, though.
Spicoli, what you got?
Do I need to? Are you from Northern Ireland or is that? Do I need to Is that a clarification that I messed up there?
No, I'm a dub. I'm from Dublin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm with you there 100%. That kind of ties into Puck's joke about Patriot games earlier. It's like they're there's been indiscretions on both sides that they're awful, and that and when it becomes ugly here, and like what you see is that rah rah rah, and it's like I was in the JROTC and through like late middle school through high school, and so it was all about getting out there and being in your uniform and saying your pledge and doing your thing. So and putting on the but it's like a lot of my contemporaries are just they're still stuck in that, and I hate to use an ugly word like brainwash, because that's probably not the right word for it, but it's like they have been so enamored by that it's like it just never dawns on them to look at the reality that they're actually facing and what is happening in the real world.
I mean, part of that is because the real world, or what's beyond your borders, doesn't really affect you from day to day. And we see it here all the time when it comes to European votes. Nobody goes out to vote for European votes. It's an inside joke in Ireland. You don't vote in an EU election, or whatever. So like, part of it is because they're so grounded in their day to day lives that they don't actually. Either it's too big for them to contemplate, like, I'm here, I can only do so much, or they just don't really, it doesn't have an impact, or they don't see it having an impact. It's the same thing with elections in general, but they don't see it having an impact on their daily life. And so to be able to reduce something that's happening in Ireland, let's say, as I said, the abortion campaign or the fight for same-sex marriage, to be able to translate that down to, well, why should I care about what's happening over there? Because it's so far away, and because America is so vast and huge, it can get to that point where I can only focus on my little patch, and that's what I've been told to worry about. And if I do that and I keep my head down, I'll be okay, because you can't actually grasp what's going on beyond that.
Well, it's crazy because it's like we're dealing with just those very issues here. It's like Texas just passed a major hit on abortion rights, and it's like I feel like that this court, the way that it's being stacked, is going to take up Roe v. Wade again. Like that is the path that they are plotting for themselves, is to because Florida, my state, with our Governor DeSantis, is following suit with heartbeat bills and things of that nature. So we're regressing. We're regressing in general here, at least in my. It's like I don't know how it's going in the freaking blue states, but it's not going good here. And Florida. All I could say is I've seen more "Let's Go Brandon" shirts than anything lately. It's like it makes me want to cry. But
I mean, the big thing is to leave yourself open to the conversations, to try and because you've been through it, so you understand where they're coming from. But then to be able to relate these issues to their own lives, that's the big thing.
I've already had to battle. I've already had to battle vaccination rights or vaccination issues within because I kind of work for the government, so it's like. I've had to battle that. I've had to take up that one because a lot of my guys are good old boys, and that's just not even a. So it's been. And
that can be difficult. That can be very difficult.
It's been grinding, is all I can say.
Well, Spicoli, I wish we had more time to talk, but I got a lot of calls to get to. Thank you very much for calling again.
Here, Puck. For American exceptionalism, the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win the Stanley Cup this year, and you can bet on that. You need a co-host, Dave Stick. No, I'm just kidding.
Keelah, as a Blue Jackets fan, let's talk about the Lightning sometime. I'll see you in Discord about that. We'll talk.
It's been a pleasure.
Good night, Spicoli. Thank you very much for calling.
Hey, nice talking to you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, we have 3 calls in the queue, and I want to see if we can run the table, so we may have to lightning round this a little bit. Let's just go right down the list. So let's talk to Muhammad, him from California. Wants to talk about moral codes and breaking rules.
Okay.
Yes.
Muhammad?
Hello.
Oh, there we are.
Hi, how are you?
Can you guys hear me?
You're coming through a little choppy, but we'll see what we can do. Go ahead and give your thesis here.
Okay. So I wanted to talk about like our.
Are you on speaker right now?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I'm hearing a lot of your room, so let's try again.
Okay, is it better now?
A little bit.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I wanted to talk about, like each one of us, we personally have like a moral code that we live by, right? And I was thinking like about that. We're put in situations in our day-to-day life where, we're forced to break one of our rules. And I'll give you a great example. So imagine like you guys have like a spouse, right? And your spouse, they ask you, like, honey, do I look good? But like, they don't look good, but you see, you're put in a position now. And like, if like we value truth as a society, right? So you're put in the position now. What do you value more, truth or making your spouse feel good? And you have to choose. You're forced to break one of your rules in this situation. So, and there's like many different examples, where this happens. Like, I'll give you an example, like a made up example. Like, say I have somehow I have a child, right? And my child, he's starving, like he's starving. He has no food to eat. If I don't get him food, he's going to die. But I'm so poor, I don't have any money. So what should I do in that situation? It's like, sorry about that. I follow the law, it's part of my moral code. I follow the law, but also I value my child's life. I want him to survive. So what do? Do I steal, food from my child, or do I let my child die? What do I value more? Do I value following the law more, or, letting my child survive? I have to choose, and I want to tell you guys that I didn't really think about these things, not that much, but what really made me start thinking about these things, and I was like, oh, shit, man, was so I saw The Dark Knight, right? By Christopher Nolan, and that movie, it's the Joker, he wins in the movie, and I'll tell you why. Joker, he tells Batman that the only sensible way to live in this world is without rules, and tonight you're gonna break your one rule. So Batman, he has a moral code, right? And Joker, time and time again in the movie, he makes Batman, he puts him in these ethical dilemmas where he's forced to break his rules. I'll give you one example. So
okay, whoa. We got plenty of examples here, Muhammad, and you're going in some really interesting places. Crafty, take it from here. What do you got?
Right. So you're asking what is more important, morals or laws, or moral codes, or your own rules.
No, sorry.
Really,
I'm saying, I'm saying that you get put in situations in your life where you're forced to break one of your rules, and you have to choose which one you value more.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
the one that you value more, you're logically going to break the other rule.
Yeah.
And then the other part of that is to remember the logic is only going to get you so far. Sometimes when you are face to face with a moral decision, you're going to make a different decision than the one you would make if you were just treating it as a hypothetical. So
yeah, it's definitely case by case. It's definitely case by case, and the decision. For instance, you talked about feeding your child or going hungry. Part of that is knowledge, is having the knowledge, having the resources available, and knowing where to go for the resources, and I hate to say this, but doing the research and understanding what your options actually are. Sometimes because we're emotional creatures, we rush into certain situations. And if we had actually stopped and took a breath and had the knowledge behind us to say, actually, it's not this false dichotomy of one or the other. I have a third option. But But it is by a case by case rules. My granddad always said, a principle isn't a principle unless you're willing to stick to it. There is a difference. There's a difference that we give to certain principles. And starvation is basically going to override any principle that you have because it's about survival. So survival will always take the place of principle. Doesn't matter who you are, but having the knowledge behind you to say, well, it's not either or, it's not black or white, it's not this or that, there is a third option, there is another way to go, is beneficial, and that's about education.
What you got, Muhammad?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I agree. It's just like, okay, say with that example I gave you, like with the spouse, right? Like we as a society, we like to tell the truth. You know, we believe like we should always tell the truth, right? But
not necessarily. Not necessarily. We are a very complicated creature, and we understand what lies are and the reasons and the necessity to lie sometimes, even if it's a small white lie. That's the unwritten rules of society, right? So we have the basic rules of what you can and cannot do, which are laws, which we agree to. And then you have the unwritten rules, which are things like don't cheat on your spouse, or pretend your spouse looks nice to if they look like crap, which all of us have done. Those little white lies are not on the same, they don't weigh the same as the big moral issues of should I kill this person or in self-defense, or should I do this instead of that. The weight isn't the same for every situation, and that's why we're saying you have to weigh up the situation and your position within that situation in order to come to a conclusion. Doesn't mean you're right, doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you're human. And you're allowed to make mistakes. We're allowed to have those little white lies, just so long as we understand the consequences for lying.
Every time I want to say something, you say it better than I do, so I'll take it.
I'm
just,
sorry.
Just like, you know, in the specific example of the spouse, I feel like I would be doing a disservice by telling them that they look more attractive than they do, because then they'll, you know, go out there in that outfit that may not be the most flattering on them. So I'm more likely to say something like, well, why don't we keep shopping and look at some other things that might look a little bit better.
You're brutal.
But again, that's a specific example. But I guess where I'm going with that is, you know, I mean, there's, I like Krafty said, I love studying context culture, not necessarily the written rules, but the little hidden. This is how you get along in our society.
Yeah, as long as you understand the consequence to what you're deciding, that's the main thing. You weigh up the consequences. Too many people in our society don't understand what consequences mean, because we live in our own little bubbles that don't have consequences. There are hefty consequences for some things and not for others. So as long as you weigh up the consequences of your actions, that's the main thing.
All right, Muhammad, I hope we gave you some insight tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love to keep talking with you, but we got a couple of other calls on the docket. We'll give you some places to get in contact with us and keep in contact with us. But thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
You're
All
awesome.
right, moving along, we have here, this will be a fun one for you. This is Tony, him from Mexico. COVID conspiracy theories, and you've been able to find some information? What you got?
Yes. Well, first of all, Puck, I just want to say congratulations for getting such awesome co-hosts, because I wasn't originally going to call, but once I heard what Keelah was saying at the beginning, I thought I'd give it a try.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the easiest show I've ever done. Krafty's giving like better answers than I ever could. So I'm basically just the call operator here tonight.
Yeah, and then after that, she was talking about other things about the medication. So I was wondering if I could switch my subject to that about bipolarity.
Not too much a fan of switching subjects. Let's talk about what you wanted to talk about. There's plenty of other places to have more conversations later. But
absolutely,
let's talk about what you called about.
Absolutely. So what I was going to talk about is because there was a caller saying that talking about the freedom and that the vaccine shouldn't be mandatory. But I want to talk about the economics of it, because I have been like swimming in this a lot of groups in social media that give me all this like evidence and how the vaccine is bad and a lot of things. And one of those is that, for example, the vaccine has had adverse effects on young people, and it has now been accepted to be used in children below the age of 12, if I'm not mistaken. And the people that decided this, I don't remember, it was in the FDA or maybe the CDC, I don't know. They were they're always supposed to be neutral about the decisions of giving green lights to vaccines, but all of them, and I looked it up, all of them had ties with Pfizer. They all had something to gain, vested interest, every single one of them. So, I mean, these vaccines, when they are, even, it doesn't matter, we're talking about pencils or vaccines or cups, they cost money. Somebody has to pay for them. And for example, let's say Pfizer, for example, it has to be making a lot of money out of this. So, I mean, I wonder what Keelah's take is on this, these facts that reveal the ugly truth about, doing it for profit.
Yeah. I can understand where you're coming from, and I love economics. Here's the thing, though. When it comes to the vaccine being safe for children, we do have to trust in the people who have spent their lives developing these things. And the likes of the FDA, the likes of the CDC, the likes of the WHO, who are making decisions, as you said, independently. And this is why some of the vaccines are not being permitted throughout Europe, throughout the US, because they won't allow for testing, independent testing. I've had these discussions with a range of different people. I actually have a friend who works for Pfizer. So let me explain to you what actually happened. In the 9 months after the lockdown, the initial lockdown, we went into lockdown in March. But after the initial lockdown, they spent 18 hours a day trying to develop the vaccine. That all has to be paid for. The work that was done has to have a value. And when you're talking economics, you're talking about value. You're talking about use value. You're talking about exchange value. And sadly, that is the world of economics. Now, would I love to see vaccines being supported by or being developed by the state? Yes. However, at the moment, because of the way states are run, they don't have the time, the expertise, or the cash inflow to do that. And that's why we have these private companies. Now, it is useful to have competition. This is what capitalism is built on, is having competition to be able to say, well, and you've seen this in the rush between Moderna, Pfizer, and AstraZeneca. My vaccine is this percent effective. Mine is that percent effective. Well, mine is better. And it actually pushes, instead of just pushing competition, it actually drives the price down for governments. So the more and more you companies, private companies that you have developing it against each other, and this is part of the problem with I think it was Moderna, who was refusing to allow a new company, a generic company, to develop their drug in order to give it to third world countries or developing countries. This is a problem. When it comes to a worldwide pandemic, the biggest issue has to be, yes, it's being done in partnership between private and public, but it has to be accessible to everybody on the planet. And at the moment, that's not happening. The only difference is you see China coming up with theirs, and I hope that China will give their vaccines over to independent testing so that we can ensure the safety of humanity. And if they're going to vaccinate the people that the likes of AstraZeneca or Moderna won't, that at least that protection is being granted. But again, it's the safety aspect that has to come of it. It has to be assessed by independent variants. If it's not being assessed by independent variants, then what you have is a company or a government saying, my vaccine is the best and, screw you. And that doesn't help anyone. That's a race to the bottom. So that's my take on the economics of the situation. Yes, companies do it for profit, but you have to remember that a lot of the research that's gone into the COVID-19 vaccine has happened over the last 20 years of analyzing other COVID variants. So it's not just all of a sudden it came out of nowhere. It has been long in the pipeline to develop this vaccine. So that has to be covered for years and years and years. Nothing came of it. Now something's coming of it because we have this global pandemic. Do you know what I mean?
What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, well, how do we, like, for example, me, how do I know, like, they're not hiding adverse effects that are coming from the vaccine and they're just pushing it for a quick buck, like in, for example, for the children? Because all the people that were supposed to be neutral when they were deciding whether or not they give the green light, they all have a vested interest on a specific company that was pushing this vaccine for the children, in my specific example.
Right. So this is piped out, interlocking boards. Everyone is on everyone's board and they all have vested interest. They have more interest economically to get the countries back working. That is when it comes down to profit, that is the big thing. It's worse for them the longer the lockdowns happen. Economically, it's worse the longer the longer the lockdowns happen. So in their best interest, they are trying to jump on board of this to solve the problem as quickly as they can. Now, a lot of people don't trust them, understandably so. But when it comes to human life and getting profits back, they're not going to get profits back if the economy is closed. That's the very simple point. So at the moment, a lot of people or a lot of companies are coming on board with the large drug companies in order to ensure that we get people back working, that we get people back out spending. Economically, it makes more sense. And when it comes to the side effects, I hate to say it, man, if you actually look on their websites, they tell you what the side effects are. They've shown you all of the drug trials, or most of the drug trials, are public knowledge, or the summaries of them are public. You can actually get hold of them.
What about the number of people that actually have had adverse effects from the vaccine?
What about the 52% more people haven't had adverse effects? Are we to? And this is the problem when it comes to vaccines or any medicine. There is going to be adverse effects, but this is a global pandemic that we're facing. There are going to be adverse effects. We're going to get better at refining our medicines, and as we go along, the less people that are vaccinated, as I said earlier, the more variants are going to spread, and the more they're going to be resistant to those drugs. And this is part of the problem that we're facing at the moment. So are we going to stop? It's basically like saying, we have 100 car deaths in this one spot every year, so therefore people are not allowed to drive down this road because we're having accidents. No, you put safety measures, and you put like cameras in there, you put or speed cameras, you put a new speed limit there, you make sure everyone's wearing their seatbelt, you bring in new legislation to make sure people comply to make the road safer. You don't just say, well, because there's road deaths, we're not going to drive cars anymore. It's the same thing. Yes, there's going to be, unfortunately, there are going to be adverse side effects, but at the end of the day, the alternative is so much worse and so much bleaker than you actually realize. And if you realized what my friend in Pfizer actually told me of the rate that they were initially expecting this to spread, you'd be horrified.
All right.
Yeah,
well thank you very much.
Definitely give me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for giving us the call, and hopefully you'll look into this stuff and see if there's anything else. Get back in touch with us. Engage with us.
Yes, please do.
Tell us what you've learned. We have time for one last, so let's take it. This is our last call.
Whoop, whoop.
We have Stephen, him from Michigan, wants to talk about Christian mental health services. Hello,
Okay.
Stephen.
Hey, Buck.
How are
What you got for us?
Hey, I'm doing all right. I wanted to call in to ask if I'm sorry, there's a really bad echo right now, so I'm losing my
I
train
don't
of
have an
thought.
echo.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Have you got headphones? Because that sometimes creates an echo.
I don't. It's just a regular phone call.
Yes. Sorry.
Whatever. Just push through it. So there's a, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on Christian mental health services where they take a Christian approach to psychiatric care.
Okay, so anything that I personally know about this, I gained from watching the work of a friend of the show, Shannon Q, who did a rather robust series on Christian mental health services. I feel like I would be doing a disservice to say that I know anything about it personally, other than to say that, like we were talking about therapy earlier, that when you have conflicting ideals, like in one case, Christian values, and then on the other one, modern mental health practices, one of them is going to win out. And usually when it comes to a Christian organization, the Christian part is going to win out. And so I have a little problem with that. Krafty, what do you know about Christian mental health services?
Well, everything over here is Christian mental health services, sadly, because we haven't really divided, to a large extent, we haven't really divided the church and state. So I can understand where a lot of the fear would be coming from. And are you talking about like psychiatric care, or are you talking about just kind of psychiatry?
Well, yeah, psychiatric care and psychiatry kind of go hand in hand. But I was wondering, I got involuntarily committed one time, and it was a very traumatic experience. But basically, they said I had a religious fixation because I was spiritual at the time. I'm an atheist now and quite skeptical about stuff that we can't verify, but it just seemed to me just kind of weird that people who live their life actually like religious, like where do we draw the line between how can you call someone else's spirituality a mental health symptom?
Yeah.
Like, but they can live every day, they go to church every week or read their Bible. They base their life around this. They wear Jesus crosses, murder weapons on their necks. So,
I love that.
I was just, that's where I'm coming from, is wondering like where is the line there. Yeah, I don't feel it's appropriate. And as for other atheists, I could imagine it could be difficult to be in that situation. I don't think it's the fourth largest mental health service in the country. It's the largest one in our state. And I don't think they do this anymore, but I think they used to require a statement of faith to be employed there. And so now you cannot be a Christian. But so, yeah, that's my approach to this.
Well, thank you very much for actually calling, because this is a vital phone call, because what's happening is over the last, I dare to say 15 years, maybe the last 10, particularly after the economic crash of 2008, psychiatry and psychology have been changing somewhat. And what I've seen from friends of mine who have become psychologists is that instead of a one-size-fits-all that has been employed and still is employed in a lot of places, they're now seeing, or I would hope, they are now seeing psychiatry and psychology as a one-to-one basis. So instead of, and for me anyway, I know like with my bipolar, I don't want anyone putting their feelings and their thoughts and their ideas before their professionalism. Their professionalism is there to protect me and to listen to me and to help me make the decisions that are right for my life, not for theirs, not for their moral codes, but for mine. And that can be very, very challenging. Where do you draw the line? Well, that's up to legislation and how, sadly, it's up to legislation to safeguard against those practices where conscientious objection or conscientious employment is deployed. So conscientious employment is that you can only have these set of beliefs in order to in order to work for us. So in education, for instance, over here, you have to have a baptismal cert, you have to be a member of the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church or wherever you work, or whatever church has dominance over that school. And this is for public school too. This isn't just for private. So where do you draw the line? First of all, it's legislative. You have to have legislation that reflects the entirety of society, not just one section of it. And the other part is, how much are you, as a citizen or as a patient even, willing to accept that? And this is the thing: you are entitled, A, to know your history, your medical history, and B, to change your doctors. Now, a lot of people don't tell you that. And maybe because of circumstances, economic circumstances, you might not be able to do that. But you have every right to say, what you're saying does not make sense to me. What you're saying does not work for me. Let's try a different path, or I'll find a different doctor. And that's okay. That's okay to do.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this up, Stephen. I unfortunately, like, my limit when it comes to things like this is usually not having the information myself, but to be able to direct people to the places that do. I have a fantastic host or guest right now who's been able to talk greatly about it. But I also, like I said, check out the Shannon Q series on this.
Yes.
She's done a lot of interviews and personal investigations into this. So check that out also. Thank you very much for calling. I wish we had more time for everybody, but the hour draweth late and we got to get going. So thank you very much, Stephen.
Yep, I'll be sure to check out Shannon's thing. I didn't know about that. And
Shannon is brilliant.
Back. I can't remember what your name is. Krafty Keelah?
Either one, or both.
You nailed it. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Well, yeah, I
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Well, Krafty, what did you think?
I had fun.
Yeah, you did. I think I set a personal best for the number of phone calls taken, and you were brilliant. That was wonderful.
I did say to you earlier that people get me on the show forgetting that I'm a sociologist and can talk for Ireland. Now I can talk for everyone. I don't know. It was fun.
So tell us where people can see more of your work.
Yeah, so Krafty Keelah is my YouTube channel. That's pretty much where I'm based. I have 4 main shows, and then I have live streams just to chat and have conversations, and they don't really go anywhere. They're just fun, because YouTube is supposed to be fun. So we do have a few live streams there just for the crack. But that's pretty much all I do, is annoy people on YouTube all day. Yay!
And it gets you on shows like this, so you're doing something good. Yeah, hang out on those channels. You're gonna find a lot of fun people, a lot of people who know what they're talking about, and occasionally I'm on there. So hey, but if you wanted to support the show, Truth Wanted, you can go to our Patreon. That's tiny.cc/ oh goodness, I can't see it. Hold on, I gotta move my monitor. Tiny.cc/ Patreon. You can also give us an email at truth@atheist-community.org to check out back episodes of this show and the other shows on the ACA docket. Go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, where you can catch back episodes of Truth Wanted, Atheist Experience, and all the other shows produced by the ACA. I am a huge fan of our Facebook fan group, so you can go join that group at tiny.cc/FBTWG. You can see me lurking on there. If you wanted to continue the conversation, that's a fantastic place to go. Plenty of other people there who want to engage with you. One of the easiest ways you can support the channel is by liking this show. You can subscribe to this channel, or you can become a member for as little as 99 cents a month. Right after this, Krafty and I are going to be going to the ACD Discord. You can join us on there also at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. Fantastic community full of people. I love going over there for a victory lap right after the show, and you're going to catch many of the ACA personalities and crew hanging out there as well. If you like the show and you want to take it out to the streets, definitely check out our Truth Wanted merch. You can get that at tiny.cc/merch-ACA. I keep on saying this. Whenever I wear the shirt or the mask out in public, I live where the area code is 513, so everybody thinks it's a typo. But no, 512-991-9242. The best ways that we can get callers is by having people in the community say, "Oi, check out the show." And I would also be remiss if we didn't mention the fantastic crew that is behind the scenes putting this all together. Let's say hi to all of them. Look at that. Thank you
Yay,
all very
crew.
much. Yeah. Thank you all very much for putting this all together for us. Oh, I had so much fun. This was
They're
like, I don't want
amazing.
this to be over yet. But
I know.
leave the audience with some final thoughts, Krafty.
Final thoughts. No pressure there.
Nope.
Yeah, just be good to one another. Keep watching the ACA. It is fun. Come over to my channel just for the crack, and not real crack, by the way, Irish crack. And yeah, wear your masks, get your vaccines, and stay safe, guys.
And as always, until next week, keep wanting the truth. Take care.
Watch the nonprofits and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central between the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.